Last time, on Axel talks about Balan Wonderworld.
Balan's Wonderworld. This one is an interesting one. They developed like 3 of the minigames in WePlay Motion. Wait, this game was directed by Yuji Naka? $39.99! Holy shit! You see all of these buttons right here? And this one too? All of them jump. That it has over 80 power-ups. What is even happening? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my god.
And now the thrilling conclusion.
I finished World 3, there's a girl here that doesn't like deforestation, let's dance, and after that, we dance. World 6, oh, World 6. What can be said about World 6? It's flat, it's simplistic, there's nothing of substance here, no platforming at all, a completely straight line. It has a flying cat power-up that is my favorite in the game and it's really fun to use. What?! Why would they put not just a hover, but the best, most reliable and fun hover, or even thing related to jumping in this game, in a level with no jumping hazards? Was it because you knew people would like it, so you put it in a level that wouldn't be frustrating to go back through? Do the developers even agree that this system is dumb? I can't get over that. I literally can't get over that. It's like the best power-up in the game. I love it so much. Why is it in this level with no jumping? There is not a single use for it that I can find. That can't be completed with another power-up. There is one, and only one place where I can say for certain that this power-up is flat out needed to be used. And it's here, with these fast-moving blocks. But they made a time-stopping power-up that literally stops time, that makes it so you can get through it easier, and it's only used once, exactly here. Oh my god, let's talk about the story. World 6 is themed around Great Britain and cats. I don't know why, it just is.
Oi there, love, would you like this bottle?
And just like every single world, we see this giant person hanging around alongside a normal version of them that disappears when you see them. It's also the same person featured at the end of chapter cutscenes that happened before and after the boss. There was the corn dude who lost literally his entire farm, and yeah, I'd be pretty bummed too. There's the deforestation chick that I mentioned earlier. World 2 has this girl that got hit by a dolphin or something, and now she's too scared to dive anymore. World 3 was a girl who likes bugs, and for the life of me, I could not figure out what in God's name any of this means. Like, why are these guys here? Who are they? And what does it have to do with me? And what does it have to do with them? And why is it trying to be all sad and just failing at every turn, really? This is meant to be emotional, obviously, but it's just not. I really needed to figure out what was going on here, but the game wasn't telling me, now was it? In fact, for a game that advertises a compelling story made by a company known for its storytelling, not a single person has said a word since the game started. I'm not making that up. None of the characters talk. Anyway, I really needed to figure this out, so I just went to Wikipedia. Balan's Wonderworld mostly takes place in Balan's Theater, a magical realm overseen by a mysterious being called Balan. The Balan Theater appears when one's heart loses its balance and connects to the Wonderworld, a realm merging reality and fantasy created from memories and hearts. The protagonists are 2 troubled children called Leo and Emma. Leo isolates himself from social contact due to an argument with his friends from years before, while Emma suffers from anxiety about what others might be saying behind her back. Both are drawn into the Balan Theater and travel through 12 worlds born from the hearts of troubled adults and children alike. Leo and Emma are opposed by Lance, a counterpart to Balan, who commands the Nagets monsters born from darkness of the Wonderworld's visitors' thinking expressions. Okay, so this world is a place where people go as a form of escapism, I guess. And these worlds represent their imaginations, which I guess makes sense. I guess the reason that they're in worlds that are so similar to their taste and interests is because they created these worlds as a means of hiding away from the real world. Here's the thing, though. Now, like I said, the cutscenes themselves are very beautiful. And on top of that, it is blatantly obvious what they were going for with the context of what the Balanced Theater is. I mean, just that one sentence, like a magical realm overseen by Balan, like merging fantasy and reality created from memories. That one line alone pretty much like summarizes their stories. And it makes it obvious what is exactly going on here, These people have experienced horrible things, and they use Balan Wonderworld as a form of escapism. But the thing about that is that it is quite hard to find yourself getting attached to these characters and their story. See, here's what I think they were going for. You see the first cutscene, seeing how their pain and suffering has affected them, seeing how they were once happy and their passion, and how their passion was ripped away from them. And as a result of this, they lose their heart, they lose their way in life, and they find their way to the theater where they sink deeper and deeper into fantasy. We walk through their worlds, and once we realize their story, we reflect upon what we've seen, seeing how they cope, seeing how important these worlds are to them, and seeing how these characters have been corrupted into a giant dark monster, fueled by their negative thoughts. We then do our best to save them, to show them some kind of peace, but we can't heal them fully. We can help them, but they have to take back control of their lives for themselves. And the final cutscene of the world shows us how they are going about picking up the pieces once again. How they leave their fantasy behind and work to make reality better than anything the fantasy of the theater could have ever given them. The problem is, though, is that this all happens in the span of 2 minutes. I've taken pisses longer than these guys' character arcs. Up until you see the cutscene, this is all just standard platforming nonsense, and when you do see the cutscene, you're immediately thrust into a boss fight that ends in under a minute, and before you can even process what is going on, or what problem we were even trying to solve, it just ends, and it shows us how it ends, and how the problem is just resolved before you even realize what the problem was. Every single character goes through an entire arc in like half a minute. You can't grow attached to these characters because we're given so little to work with. Now, if the first cutscene happened at the beginning of the world and we went through the world knowing their trauma, that would be slightly better. Or if we just got to see more of how their life was before the accident, and then maybe the accident itself would be a bit more impactful. Or if it was just a bit longer than 30 seconds each, but as it is now, it's all just way too fast to care about, and then these characters are gone and you never see them again. And in addition to that, these guys' trauma differs so far in severity that it makes you wonder what the threshold for even how you get to the theater is. Seeing how this little girl lost her pet, one of her only friends, and seeing how she corrupts and manifests into a monster because of it, makes it all the stupider that the same exact thing happened to another girl because someone didn't like her bug collection. Seeing how a farmer lost their entire farm in a hurricane, lost their home, their food, incomes, life, work, and then have them break down because of it, and you feel bad for them, and then you turn around and the same thing happens to this one guy because he lost one game of chess. Ever. Now I know that I've been primarily negative of this game so far. And for good reason, mind you. This game is boring, unimaginative, frustrating, and worst of all, boring. But in all honesty, World 4 is actually pretty good. I mean, it's nothing extraordinary, but there's some semblance of fun here. I mean, it's got good pacing, the power-ups aren't frustrating, and they're used in creative ways. There's plenty of use for all your abilities, so those abilities have a nice spectacle to it. The level is still a straight line, but it's themed around climbing, so it feels a bit more natural. Actually, tell you what, let's actually go through the first level to show you what I mean. So it starts out here, and both of the unlockable power-ups that are going to be used the most are right here at the beginning of the level, so you don't have to run a triathlon in order to get the abilities that are here. It's annoying that you have to reacquire them at all, but in all honesty, if this is the way it has to be, then I appreciate them being nearby. Even if I do have to run through this level again to get power-ups that I may have missed or that I need in different levels, they were nice enough to put the primary ones next to the start of the level and the other ones nearby. We start off with Soaring Sheep, that is a glide basically. You can also gain height with fans. If you use the fans here, right next to where the power-up is gotten, you can actually see something down there, immediately showing you that it can be used to find secrets in new areas. You then use it to go through this gate here that can't be gotten through any other way, which may seem annoying, but it is the game's way of explaining the power-up without using words or telling you. It's better to implement it organically into gameplay, which may seem obvious, but this game is a little 50-50 with it, to be honest. Sometimes it just kind of expects you to know how all this weird stuff works, without ever giving you a proper tutorial. We get across to the other platform, and our attention is immediately drawn to the left, where there is a fan housing another collectible, so if you miss the two secrets from earlier, this serves the same purpose. Immediately to our left, we see Arrow Ace, which is essentially a Sonic-style homing attack, which is one of the very, very few instances in this game where we get a power-up that serves multiple purposes. And not just multiple purposes, but many multiple purposes. It serves as a means of attack, a new ability, and lets you jump at the same time. It's almost as if it's geez, I don't know if there's a word to describe it. It's something like a power-up. Like, honestly, it's almost as if this thing acts as an upgrade to your abilities, which is the whole fucking... You can jump normally, but then you can also push the jump button again in midair to home onto any one or thing that it targets, which will almost always be a thing that is in the general direction of what you're inputting, you know, kind of like Sonic Forces. I think it did it in that game too. Also, something cool about these power-ups is that they actually complement each other, with one focusing on helping you ascend and stay in the air, while the other giving you more control over descending. And best of all, they're both actually fun to use. And Arrow Ace especially is actually a little challenging, having to rely on reaction timing in order to not fail. I mean, can you imagine, like, using a power-up to create a challenge? I mean, this has got to be the first time this has ever happened before. We head inside the mountain, where we immediately see that the sheep power-up is front and center and is given to us here, so in case we fall off, we can just immediately get it again while we're here. The sheep power-up here is used to get to these two switches, which opens the door out to the other side. And this little cave in between the two sections of the level is actually where most of the hidden collectibles are. So if you do come back to this level looking for more statues, most of the statues will be in this little hub area, with a few exceptions, but there's nothing too crazy, and all the power-ups that you need in order to get them are fairly easy to find. They're early in the levels that you find them in. We keep climbing, and then we come out the other side to a mini-boss. This guy appears throughout the game, but this one in particular is made much easier with the homing attack, but it's still very challenging because it's hard to get up to him, so you basically have to use homing attack. And then when you do that, the door opens and then you leave the level. And the next level, thankfully, doesn't introduce like 40 more required power-ups on us. Thank God. It has one new one, which is basically just a just a laser attack. It doesn't do anything. I don't even think it hurts enemies, so don't even use it. So just keep the power-ups that you have on you, and just keep doing the level, because it keeps the focus on the power-ups that are from level 1, making harder segments and platforming challenges out of the concepts. The boss is also a lot more engaging than many of the others. It's on a revolving treadmill, so you can't just stand there and wait for the boss to do its thing. You have to actually be continuously moving and dodging his attacks. And you also can't just run up and hit him either, because he's always in the air, so you have to wait for an opening to use the boss's weakness. And you do actually have to use the power-ups in order to expose the boss's weakness. Sometimes it will drop down some fans and you can use the soaring sheep to get up and attack him, or it'll release some balloons and you can use the homing attack to run up and hit him. There are actually really creative ways to use the power-ups during the boss fights, and they're not just there to give you an extra hit when you fight the boss. Like I said, it's nothing extraordinary, but it's probably the most focused this game has ever been up until this point. It's a handful of solid ideas that are all explored to a nice extent, which is not something I can say about the rest of the game. Trust me. It was a really refreshing change of pace, and I actually managed to 100% the first level, and it was legitimately fun to do so. Like, not even joking, I actually had fun exploring and using the power-ups. It was a nice change of pace, and it's refreshing for me enough to get me to feel ready for the final world. Like, honestly, I was really excited to see what else the game had to throw me at this piss. Okay, now I'm ready to see what the final world has to throw at me. It might be an entire world, or maybe it's just a boss. I don't know, but I am legitimately excited to see it. So we play the cutscene again, except this time, and instead of locking 3 more worlds, it opens the gates to... 3 more worlds. Okay, I guess this game is longer than I thought, huh? Alright, I'll be right back. What, you want me to talk about these levels too? I hate to break it to you, but this game does not divvy things up much after this point. Outside of a single-use power-up, there's not a single fun idea to be had here. And even the few that could be some resemblance of fun are just flat-out negated by more power-ups that they give you, and they're never given a moment to breathe, or... God, it's just the same thing over and over again. It's just boring. That's really the only word for it. It's just a boring game. But you know what? I chugged through the last 3 worlds and oh, piss off! But I did it, and I watched the cutscene, and it opened the way to... You can't make this up. You really can't make this up. They looked at everything they had. They looked at, like, 500 collectibles, an entire town system that's barely used, 80 power-ups that perfectly teeter that torturous line between necessary and useful, and a dull, uninspired plot. They looked at 9 worlds filled with the most repetitive and boring mechanics I have ever come across, forced through with a slippery, imprecise control scheme, 2 levels each, ranging from anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes if you want to get everything. Everything that you will need to get through, and a lineup of bosses that all look and act almost identical to each other. And they said, that's not enough. We need 12. I'm impressed. Actually, that's not something you do for the hell of it. They really did believe in this game. They put their heart and soul into making this game, and In certain areas, it shows. The music, the art style, the CG. There's actually something that kind of proves the point here. This is the character cutscene from World 8. I mean, just look at it. This is what they were trying to do. And obviously, what's going on here is that this woman loses her parents, and in her grief, she drives away her fiance. Simple stuff, but it's just so much better than all the others. First of all, we actually start out with seeing how good her life is before this. Not her enjoying a hobby or whatever or something. No, this is her life. It's not just the things that she does. It's the people who she spends all her time with and the people who she loves, and it's just her life in general. And secondly, this wasn't a random accident that causes her to lose her way. It was, in a way, her own doing. Fueled by grief, of course, but losing her parents isn't what sent her to the theater. It was really bad, but it wasn't what did it for her. Losing her fiance is what did it. And that was a result of her refusing to open up to him about her feelings and turning him away at every corner over the period of what seems to be a really, really long time. And it makes him feel like nothing can be done, so he gets ready to leave. Secondly, the theme here doesn't suck ass. It's not just, oh, this guy likes corn, so let's make it a corn world. No, it's an ice world. And that's not because she likes winter or something, it's representative of how she became. It's representative of how she was once someone who was warm and opening and loving, and now she's cold and reclusive. The world isn't just whatever she thinks it's cool, it's actually reflective of her inner turmoil. Even the world itself tells a sort of story about this, as we see it worsen. While the beginning of the world is still a winter theme, it's brightly lit and starts with an ice skating section. It shows that she's still able to be happy and have fun in spite of the cold, but over the course of the world, it dissolves into abandoned buildings and more enemies, representing the worsening of her grief and isolation. And third of all, the outcome is satisfying. Sure, the problem is resolved far too soon, but it still feels like our work pays off, and that's due to one tiny detail. She hasn't lost him yet, but she's about to. In all the other worlds, they lose their thing and it's gone. And then we send them back to the real world and we're just like, hey, good luck, fucker. And then we see a cutscene showing how they work to get their thing back. But we can see in the first cutscene that even though her fiance is outside of the house and the ice locks the door, he's only just now leaving. He did turn to leave, but he hasn't left yet. We can just get it to open up, we can stop it from ending, and that's what we do. Instead of just telling them to keep trying, we actually save her, we solve the problem. It creates a small sense of urgency, a feeling of it's not too late, which comes through in the boss fight in the subsequent cutscene where we see that our actions have paid off. And as a result, we feel kind of good when we see that she's lost. The story, the cinematography, the tension, the payoff, the score, the animation, this is passion. This is what they were going for. This is the potential the game had. This is the quality that they were capable of doing, but they just couldn't consistently deliver throughout the rest of the game. And it's not because they couldn't or because something got in the way. There is one thing at fault for how it turned out, and it's just because they failed to do so. And that failure isn't for any one reason in particular. It's just something really bad that happened to them. That right there is why this game is so bad. Now, I don't hate this game. Not objectively, at least. From a design perspective, and with how everything turned out, I'd say it's like maybe a 6.7 out of 10, something like that. It's not great, but it's adequate for most of the runtime. You know what I mean? There's a lot of really unfun moments in this game and a lot of really questionable design decisions, but I wouldn't say that it's completely incompetently made. There's some interesting stuff here. Not anything that could have saved the game, but just stuff that I feel like is worth merit. But the perspective of what it could have been is what really sells it. How the developers cared and put everything into this. The trailer of what looks like a fun 3D platformer. The promise of quality content from a developer who delivers quality content to people that are just jonesing for the next one. That alone makes every single cumbersome mechanic, frustrating segment, boring set piece, uninspired boss, useless power, and rushed story all seem 10 times worse. If this was a random game thrown on the eShop by an indie developer for $10, no one would have batted an eye and everyone would have unanimously agreed that it was okay. The promise of the next big 3D platformer developed by a company that is, for the most part, known for a good amount of quality is what we all thought this was gonna be, but it's not. And in my opinion, that is why this game is absolutely deserving of the brutal reviews it got. What a surprise, right? You play a bad game and you have a bad time. I don't know what I expected, to be honest. I should have just taken it out back and shot it right then and there. In conclusion, a flawed, boring, ultimately tedious experience made much worse by the idea of what it could have been.
Axel then went on to eat an entire loaf of pretzel bread and slept till noon. They woke up 20 years later in a post-apocalyptic world where Balan was ruler and pretzel bread was no more. Realizing there was no way out, Axel escaped into the woods, never to be seen again. Their body has yet to be recovered. And that is the story of one person's descent into madness and their gall to ever question a perfect world. Let this be a lesson to the next generation to not question our true ruler, King President Balan III. Class dismissed.